biting wind shrieked through the desolate streets as Ron Parker, a 57-year-old janitor, pulled his tattered jacket closer around him. His shift had just concluded, and fatigue clung to him like a heavy shroud. As he strolled toward the bus stop, headlights danced in the distance, revealing a silver sedan abandoned on the roadside. An aged gentleman wrestled with the task of changing a flat tire, his unsteady hands unable to grasp the jack firmly. Ron paused, uncertainty flickering in his mind. He was running on fumes, yet an unyielding force within him refused to let him turn back. That one choice would alter the course of his existence for all time. The following morning, the sight that greeted him in his driveway nearly caused his heart to seize. Before we dive in, please give this video a thumbs up and let us know your location in the comments. Your support enables us to share more impactful narratives. Let's get started. The frigid wind sliced through Ron Parker's flimsy jacket as he emerged from the building, his breath forming clouds in the chilly night air. His body throbbed from yet another exhausting shift, cleaning floors and scrubbing toilets. At 57, he was acutely aware of his age, yet he found himself with no alternatives. Bills remained indifferent to his fatigue. The streets lay almost empty as he made his way to the bus stop, the soles of his battered work boots scraping against the pavement. He found himself waiting for the bus, which was still 20 minutes away, longing for the comfort of home and a chance to unwind. While he tightened the strap of his worn backpack, a sudden movement in the distance drew his attention. A vehicle lingered at an odd angle by the roadside, its hazard lights flickering feebly. The front tire was utterly deflated. Next to it stood an elderly man, likely in his late 70s, bent over as he fought to loosen the lug nuts. His hands shook from the chill, his breath escaping in quick, strained bursts. Ron observed the irritation etched on his face as he wiped his forehead, smudging it with a streak of grease. Ron paused, uncertainty flickering in his mind. He felt utterly drained, his fingers tingling with fatigue, and his feet ached from the relentless hours spent on his feet. He might choose to act as if he had not witnessed anything. Continue your journey. Disregard it. Wouldn't another person just pause, perhaps? Yet, beneath the surface, he understood that this was not his true self. He exhaled softly, pivoting to make his way to the car. "Do you require assistance, sir?" he inquired, adjusting his gloves with a firmer grip. The old man glanced upward, taken aback, and then offered a weary smile. "I could certainly benefit from one." These bolts refused to move. Ron crouched next to him, evaluating the circumstances. The man had the jack in place, yet the lug nuts were stubbornly rusted and firmly secured. He removed his gloves and seized the wrench, exerting every ounce of his strength to turn it. They came undone one after another. The man observed with a sense of calm as Ron deftly replaced the tire, his movements fluid and assured. "You handled that like a true expert," the man chuckled. "After years of honing my craft," Ron replied, brushing the dirt off his hands. The man gently patted his shoulder. "You rescued me this evening, my boy. I can't imagine how I would have managed out here by myself." Ron gave a slight nod. He always gave without anticipating anything back. That was simply his essence. As the man drove away, Ron experienced a profound sense of satisfaction, unaware that this seemingly small act of kindness would ignite a series of events that would alter the course of his life indefinitely. The following morning, as Ron emerged onto his porch, he found his breath momentarily trapped in his throat. A luxury car sat in his driveway, its sleek black exterior shining brilliantly in the sunlight. His heart raced as he stepped forward, struggling to comprehend the scene before him. Suddenly, the driver's door swung open. Ron's life was on the brink of a dramatic transformation. Ron's heartbeat thudded in his ears as he gazed at the opulent car resting in his driveway. It resembled a scene pulled right from the silver screen. Refined, immaculate, and valued higher than his total earnings over the past 5 years together. He took a deep breath, the cool morning air swirling around him. To whom did it belong and what was its purpose here? Suddenly, the driver's door swung open, and a man emerged from the vehicle. Ron identified him without hesitation. The man from the previous night was indeed elderly. Yet, there was an unmistakable change. The old jacket and worn-out boots were no more. Instead, he donned a fitted coat, gleaming shoes, and moved with a sense of understated command. His gaze met Ron's, and a smile spread across his face. "Good morning, Ron," the gentleman remarked, taking a step closer. Ron blinked, searching for the words to express himself. "Good morning, sir." The man's name remained a mystery to him. The old man let out a hearty laugh. "I apologize for not making a proper introduction last night. I am William Hawthorne." Ron's breath hitched in his throat. The name rang a bell. Suddenly, it dawned on him. Hawthorne Industries, the colossal entity that dominated half the enterprises in town. The individual before him was far from an average elderly person, grappling with a flat tire. He ranked among the richest individuals in the city. Ron stood up, a wave of self-awareness washing over him as he glanced at his tattered jacket and scuffed boots. I was unaware." William gestured with a hand wave. "That's precisely the reason for my presence." He waved his hand in the direction of the car. "This is intended for you." Ron stepped back, his thoughts racing to catch up. "I find myself puzzled." William beamed. "Your assistance came when it wasn't required, and I truly appreciate it. You were unaware of my identity. You didn't request anything. Such occurrences are uncommon." He halted, his demeanor shifting to one of gravity. "Individuals such as yourself, diligent and sincere, are worthy of far more than what life offers." Ron shook his head, his hands quivering with uncertainty. "This is unacceptable to me. I was simply acting as anyone else would have in that situation." William's gaze became gentle. "Absolutely not, Ron. Many individuals might have simply strolled by. You did not." Ron gazed at the car once more, its polished exterior mirroring his astonished expression. His thoughts roared in protest, insisting that this was overwhelming, that he was merely a janitor, a man accustomed to surviving on the edge. Yet, beneath the surface, a quiet voice murmured an alternate truth. Perhaps, just perhaps, life was at last offering a return. William delved into his coat and retrieved an envelope. "If the car is excessive, then at the very least consider taking this." He passed it to Ron. Ron paused momentarily before reaching for it. His fingers trembled while he unsealed the envelope, and the sight before him left him feeling unsteady on his feet. A verification, a check like no other, an amount that could transform everything, inscribed in sharp black ink. His breath hitched. William rested a hand on his shoulder. "Take the wheel and navigate the road. Deposit the check. And keep in mind, there are moments when kindness returns in unexpected ways." Ron remained motionless as William pivoted, entered a different vehicle, and departed. He glanced at the check once more, his hands trembling. He had never encountered anything in his life that could have equipped him for this moment. However, one thing was undeniable. His universe had been irrevocably transformed. Ron stood there, his grip so tight that his fingers throbbed with discomfort. His heart raced within him as he gazed at the opulent vehicle, its sleek exterior shimmering in the bright morning light. The truth of the matter had yet to completely register. He had devoted his entire existence to the struggle for survival, mopping floors, repairing faulty pipes, and earning just enough to ensure the lights stayed on. In just one day, everything had transformed. His hands shook slightly as he opened the check once more, his gaze darting over the figures. Merely settling his overdue rent or repairing the leaky roof in his modest home was insufficient. It was sufficient to transform his whole existence. He had the means to purchase a residence. He might consider returning to school. He could finally embrace a purpose beyond mere existence. A sudden gust of wind jolted him from his reverie, prompting him to swiftly fold the check back into the envelope, his heart pounding with an unusual blend of exhilaration and trepidation. Could this truly be unfolding? Did something go wrong? Individuals like him, custodians, those who toiled in the background and remained unseen, did not simply awaken to discover a lavish vehicle and a check amounting to more than they had ever encountered. Ron let out a sharp breath, his fingers combing through his graying hair. He sought to find clarity in his thoughts. He advanced cautiously, extending his hand toward the car's door handle. As his fingers glided over the sleek metal, an epiphany struck him with the force of a tidal wave. This was more than a mere vehicle. It represented a chance to seize something greater. After years of familiarity, he found himself gazing at a future that appeared distinct from the life he had always lived. The words of his late mother resonated in his mind, reminding him that kindness always found a way back. Yet, he had never anticipated it returning in such a manner. The echo of footsteps on the pavement prompted him to glance back. His neighbor Greg stood on his porch, eyes fixed on the car. A look of astonishment etched across his face. "Ron?" Greg exclaimed, his tone filled with incredulity. "What on earth is that?" Ron hesitated, searching for the perfect expression. "It belongs to me." Greg emitted a soft whistle as he approached. "Since when does someone in that profession drive a car like this?" Ron paused, uncertainty flickering in his mind. He understood the appearance of the situation. A man of his stature, residing in a dilapidated home, unexpectedly possessing a car that would typically grace the garage of a millionaire. It was utterly perplexing. And if he were truthful, he was still grappling to understand it himself. After much deliberation, Ron finally spoke up. "However, I believe a shift in my fortune has just occurred." Greg arched an eyebrow, unmistakably anticipating further details. However, Ron wasn't prepared to divulge the entire tale at that moment. It seemed overwhelmingly vast, almost dreamlike, and a part of him remained anxious that it could all vanish if he dared to voice it too early. While Greg kept his gaze fixed on the car, Ron felt his phone vibrate in his pocket. He retrieved it and noticed an unfamiliar number illuminating on the display. His stomach churned as he responded. "Greetings?" A well-known voice replied, composed and unwavering. "Greetings, Ron. This is William Hawthorne speaking." Ron's hold on the phone grew firmer. "Mr. Hawthorne?" William let out a soft laugh. "I trust you've had a chance to look over the car and the check by this point." Ron exhaled deeply. "Absolutely, sir. I remain uncertain about how to express myself." "Hold off on saying anything for now," William remarked. "There's one final matter I'd like to bring up with you." Ron's heart raced. "What is it exactly?" After a moment of silence, William began to speak once more. "What would it be like to leave behind the role of a janitor for good?" Ron's breath hitched in his throat. He had devoted his whole existence to the unseen, cleaning floors, scrubbing toilets, and mending what was damaged. The idea of never experiencing that again seemed almost impossible to comprehend. He clutched the phone with intensity, his voice scarcely rising above a murmur. "Could you clarify what you mean?" William's tone was unwavering. "I truly meant every word I expressed. You will never need to take on janitorial work again. The time has come to close that chapter of your life." Ron's thoughts surged with intensity. For years, he adhered to the same pattern, rising before dawn, trudging to his job, enduring the pain in his muscles merely to survive. He had never envisioned a reality beyond that. Yet he paused. What alternatives could I consider? A gentle laugh echoed over the phone. "Ron, you hold a role that goes beyond mere cleaning duties. You possess a heart that surpasses the ordinary. You paused to assist me when you perceived me as merely an elderly man left alone on the roadside. You never sought anything in exchange. That reveals more about you than any resume possibly could." Ron gulped nervously. Throughout his life, he had offered assistance to others, not seeking acknowledgement or compensation, but solely because it was the moral choice. That was the lesson imparted by his mother. He could nearly hear her voice echoing that true wealth was found solely in kindness. William continued, "I have more businesses than I can count, and I require someone I can rely on. Someone who understands the value of hard work, who recognizes those often ignored, someone with strong principles." Ron sensed a profound change in the very earth he stood upon. "So, you're asking if I should work for you?" William affirmed that he was in a significantly improved situation. I would like you to manage the staff at one of my businesses. You have dedicated your existence to being the one who endures the struggles. Ron. Now I want you to take the lead in ensuring that no one else experiences the treatment you endured. Ron pressed his palm to his forehead. It seemed utterly unattainable, as if it were a surreal dream from which he might awaken at any instant. I honestly have no idea if I'm even qualified. William expressed that you possess exceptional qualifications. You're familiar with the challenges, the relentless effort, the determination to forge ahead even in the shadows of obscurity. That is the type of guidance individuals seek. Ron's throat was constricted. He reflected on the countless years he had endured being overlooked, laboring diligently while those around him scarcely recognized his presence. He had always convinced himself that this was simply how life operated, yet now, for the first time, someone was truly recognizing him, not merely as a janitor, not just another figure in the shadows, but as an individual who held significance. A lengthy pause lingered in the air before Ron broke the stillness with his words. When should I begin? William exhaled contentedly. Let's connect tomorrow morning. I will have my assistant forward the details to you. As the call concluded, Ron remained in place, the phone still held against his ear. He had never envisioned that his life could transform in such a way. The vehicle, the payment, the fresh position. The overwhelming nature of it all was difficult to comprehend. He glanced back at Greg, who remained fixated on the opulent car parked in his driveway. Are you going to share what's happening? Greg inquired, his arms folded across his chest. Ron released a deep, trembling sigh. I believe I've just encountered an extraordinary opportunity. Greg emitted a soft whistle. It seems your generosity has truly borne fruit, my friend. Ron cast a fleeting look at the car before shifting his gaze to his hands, weathered and calloused from years of hard work. He devoted his existence to mending what was shattered. At last, it seemed as though a part of his own existence was beginning to mend. The following morning, Ron found himself before a magnificent glass structure, his heart racing with anticipation. The air held a refreshing chill, and the sun stretched its rays to create elongated shadows on the ground. Yet he hardly paid attention. For years, he trudged into the office, his gaze fixed on the ground, blending into the backdrop of everyday labor. Yet today stood apart. Today, he found himself stepping into a realm he had never envisioned could exist. Clad in the suit that William's assistant had provided, Ron hardly recognized his own reflection. The material exuded a silky texture, hinting at luxury. The faded janitor's uniform seemed like a distant memory. He inhaled deeply and crossed the threshold. The lobby was expansive, featuring floors that shone brilliantly beneath the radiant lights. Professionals in custom-fitted attire navigated the space with intent, their discussions merging into a soft murmur of corporate dialogue. Ron sensed his surroundings were foreign, yet he straightened his posture with determination. He dedicated his life to laboring more diligently than the majority of these individuals ever needed to. He rightfully belonged in this place. A receptionist welcomed him with a friendly smile. Mr. Harper is awaiting your arrival. Kindly use the elevator to reach the top floor. Ron nodded, his throat parched as he entered the polished elevator. The doors closed with a soft hiss, and the digits ascended relentlessly. This was more than merely a job. This marked the beginning of a fresh chapter. As the doors swung open, William stood there, poised and ready. He positioned himself behind an imposing desk, the city skyline unfolding behind him through expansive floor-to-ceiling windows. Ron. William welcomed him with a gesture, inviting him to take a seat. You appear quite impressive. Ron gulped nervously. I can hardly wrap my mind around the fact that this is actually happening. William beamed with delight. Trust in it. Let's dive in and begin. For the next hour, William guided Ron through every detail. The organization's framework, his position, the anticipated outcomes. It was a lot to take in, yet Ron focused closely, soaking up every word. You find yourself here because you have a deep understanding of human nature, William remarked. You're familiar with the essence of diligence and the challenges that come with it. That is what sets you apart from the rest. I don't require a person with a costly qualification. I seek an individual who truly perceives others, who comprehends their essence. Ron gave a slow, deliberate nod. For an extended period, he had thought that success was unattainable, but now his perspective had shifted. Perhaps achievement isn't defined by your origins. Perhaps it revolved around the person you were ready to transform into. As he stepped out of the office, a transformation stirred within him. He had transcended the role of a mere janitor. He stood as a figure of leadership. That evening, while he settled into his new apartment, a gift from William, he reflected on the whirlwind of changes that had unfolded in merely a few days. The weight of years of fatigue had finally lifted. In its stead was an emotion he hadn't experienced in ages: anticipation. Ron stood on the balcony of his new apartment, gazing at the city lights that sprawled endlessly before him. Only a few days prior, he found himself on his hands and knees, cleaning floors, overlooked and undervalued. Now he found himself in a realm he had never imagined, facing a future that felt almost beyond his grasp. The cool night breeze enveloped him as he held onto the railing, his thoughts swirling with the events that had unfolded. The device vibrated with a sudden alert. It was indeed William. William remarked, "I trust you're getting comfortable. Tomorrow holds great significance." Ron swept his fingers through his thinning silver strands. William chuckled, still perplexed by the situation. "Indeed, you shall. Make sure to arrive at the office early." The call concluded, leaving Ron filled with a sense of eager expectation. For years, he had felt like a ghost, convinced that his moment had slipped away. Yet now, a spark within him resisted the encroachment of uncertainty. A rare opportunity had been bestowed upon him, one that eluded many in similar circumstances. He would not squander it. The following morning, Ron reached the impressive glass structure just before dawn. He ascended in the elevator to William's office, his heart racing as it had the previous day. Yet, on this occasion, he was more than merely a guest. He was entering a position of significance. William sat at his desk, immersed in the task of reviewing papers. He raised his gaze and offered a smile. "Are you prepared?" Ron gave a slight nod. "Prepared to the best of my ability." William gestured for him to come along. They strolled through an elongated corridor, finally arriving at a conference room brimming with executives clad in impeccably tailored suits. All gazes fixed on Ron, their faces betraying nothing. "This," William remarked, resting a hand on Ron's shoulder, "is the individual I mentioned to you." A soft whisper floated across the room. Ron sensed the pressure of their gaze yet maintained his composure. William motioned to the prominent chair at the table. "Ron, please take a seat." Ron paused for a moment, then drew the chair back. The leather felt velvety under his touch. After years of tidying up conference rooms just like this one, he finally found himself seated at the table. "As many of you know," William continued, addressing the executives, "I hold the view that true leadership transcends mere experience documented on paper. It revolves around character. It revolves around understanding the essence of hardship, the battle, and the unwavering spirit to persist. That is the reason Ron is present." A hush enveloped the room. At that moment, an executive began to speak. "What will Mr. Ron's role entail?" William beamed. "Starting now, he will be in charge of our workforce initiatives. He will serve as the representative for those in the trenches, the individuals we frequently overlook." Ron's breath hitched. He had anticipated a role, perhaps in management. But this exemplified true leadership. For years, he had been ignored, regarded merely as another cog in the machine. At this moment, he was presented with an opportunity to make a difference for individuals who shared his experiences. Individuals who labored relentlessly, pouring their hearts and souls into their endeavors, yet often went unnoticed. The meeting pressed on, yet Ron scarcely caught the nuances. His mind was consumed with thoughts of how his life had taken an unexpected turn, leading him down a path he had never envisioned. As he exited the building that evening, immersing himself in the refreshing night air, he caught sight of it. The opulent vehicle remained stationed in his driveway, shining brilliantly beneath the glow of the streetlights. Yet, it had evolved into something beyond a mere present. It served as a symbol, a poignant reminder that regardless of one's beginnings, their narrative was not predetermined. Ron had spent decades convinced that his fate was to be nothing more than a janitor. At that moment, the reality was clear to him. He was meant for greater things.